Greetings, Tezos Nation. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Peter Henderson, Director of the Sustainable Impact Trading Ecosystem Limited, also known as SITE. For those who might not know, Sustainable Impact Token is a fascinating new project aimed at tackling three of the most urgent existential problems facing humanity in 2022: carbon emissions, the energy crisis, and food insecurity. This Tezos-powered project is currently raising capital to construct its flagship facility in Poland, and everyone here at the Tezos Commons is extremely excited to see it take shape right here in the Tezos ecosystem in the months to come. In addition to learning as much as we can about this amazing new project, we'll be giving away a Tezos-branded Nano Ledger to one lucky viewer today. If you'd like that lucky viewer to be you, keep an ear out for a keyword later on during the stream. And of course, if you have any questions for Peter that you'd like me to ask, please add them in the chat at any time. We'll get to as many as we can before we wrap up. Hi, Peter. How are
Hey,
things in the UK?
Everything's pretty great. It's a nice sunny day in the UK. I've been lucky enough to be on a boat on the Solent, so had a great day so far.
That's better than my morning. To get us started, can you tell us a bit about your professional background and how you made your way into the blockchain space?
I'm a television news cameraman by trade. Many years ago, I was living and working in South Africa and started working with the BBC and also NBC and CBS and a few other broadcasters as a freelance news cameraman. I moved to the UK. I didn't really like the weather much, so looked at a map and thought, where's it fun, sunny, interesting, and amazing? And I chose the Middle East, and I moved to Cyprus and was a freelance news cameraman based in Cyprus. So if any of your viewers ever watched any of the Gulf Wars, I was the guy on the roof of the Al Rashid Hotel in Baghdad with Peter Arnett while all the skies around us were being lit up by bombs and planes in Iraq. So I did that for many years. And then I sold that business to France Telecom and moved to Africa with my three kids, set up a mobile phone network, sold that, went to Harvard for 3 years, did an MBA. So basically I got bored quickly, built businesses, sold them and invested, and eventually got to the point of my career where as an impact investor, I get involved in projects that I believe in, that I feel make a massive difference to the world.
Okay. So obviously, quite an interesting journey for you. At what point in your journey did you decide to get involved with something like this, where you're taking on some of the biggest issues facing humanity? Like, how did those jobs that you've done and those places you've been inform that decision?
So I think witnessing history unfolding in front of you on a daily basis makes you reflect on life a lot. I was lucky enough to spend the night in 114 countries in my career. So traveled, the world and sometimes witnessing horrible things from, if any of your viewers watched Black Hawk Down in Somalia, I spent a lot of time in Mogadishu. I spent time in Iraq and different parts of the world where things weren't so cool. So when you come home and you reflect on how lucky you are with your own family and your own life and your own country that you live in that is safe and works, you start thinking, well, what can you do to make a difference and how can you help make the world a slightly better place? And I was lucky enough to have exited a few times from some businesses, so had a bit of capital and thought, well, what's the next adventure? Sometimes I describe myself as an adventure capitalist rather than an investor, because it has to be fun and it has to make an impact. And really about 2.5 years ago, I was listening to the news and I heard about this person called Winkleman who had sold something called an NFT for $68 million. And I was fascinated. I just had no idea what an NFT was and how could a piece of digital art be so valuable and who would have bought it. So through a contact of mine at CBS, we managed to get hold of the artist as well as Sotheby's and had this discussion. And on the discussion, I realized that there was this thing called blockchain, and that was new to me as well, which allowed the artists and other people who were involved in that industry to have a residual revenue stream coming back to them for years to come because it was reflected around the world on blockchain on different nodes. And I thought that's a pretty cool thing for business. If you could use blockchain for business, it would make sometimes what are regarded as complicated problems more simple. So then I thought of my own business, and I was involved in solar energy in Poland. I had a big project with my partner, Dr. Leszek Siwek, in Poland. We are most probably one of the largest independent solar developers there. And we started to move into looking at food security through the growing of algae. And I said to Leszek, if we somehow manage to get this whole project online, then we'll be able to perhaps attract different investors, because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to fractionally invest in a project because either it's too big, or they're not in a family office, or it's too difficult. If we can attract a way of having lots of people support and get involved in what we're doing, then this thing called blockchain and crypto sort of makes sense. So we decided to go ahead and do some research. And the first thing I discovered was it's not that easy to set up a company anywhere in the world that's basically driven on cryptocurrency and rules and regulations, and different countries have different laws regarding it. So after a bit of research, I discovered that Switzerland was quite a good location to set up a crypto company. So was Malta, so was Liechtenstein. We looked at Cyprus, we looked at the Cayman Islands, we looked at the USA, and eventually we ended up with the British Virgin Islands. And the main reason we went to the British Virgin Islands was that the law was conducive to what we wanted to do. We could set up a company. We got Harneys to do a strong legal opinion on us, and we discovered that we would be entitled to establish a company and legally sell tokens to investors, and that share registry could be fractionalized and they could become, traditional shareholders of our business. So that was a good start. And then we decided, well, how now are we going to attract investors now that we've got a structure in place? How do we go about it? And the next thing we thought was, well, we need to select a blockchain. And obviously there are a number of them, and we decided that our philosophy was very much a green philosophy. We didn't want a blockchain that was not conducive to supporting a good environmental footprint or impact on the environment. And we chose Tezos basically because it had a very green footprint. And also we met a gentleman called Ludovic van Zetten, who was a lawyer in the BVI, who then moved to the UK. And Ludovic was absolutely amazing in walking us down the path with Tezos to not only want to help us set up the company correctly, but also introduced us to the whole team at Tezos, who would allow us to build everything on that blockchain and start using Tezos as the platform or the blockchain of choice. So that was a fortuitous and really enjoyable journey. And I can't say enough positive things about Tezos in terms of that aspect. So it's been a really good journey.
Well,
they also
if I can just back you up a little bit here. So we talked about this, the sort of larger vision of this project being to work towards dealing with the energy crisis, food insecurity, and carbon emissions. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could explain a little bit about what part algae plays in dealing with those three seemingly disparate issues.
You're absolutely 100%. If we think of the world's stress factors at the moment, they're 100% energy. People are starving, and there's far too much carbon going into our atmosphere. So if we can focus on those three, it makes a huge difference. When Dr. Leszek and I were in Poland, we came across a German-Polish professor who was growing algae, or algae as you say in the United States. And we asked him what he was doing, and he said this was going to be protein that would go into the food chain. And we looked at it with fascination because we discovered this incredible superfood that is a non-animal based protein that's quite easy to farm. And the way that you farm it is that you have about 1,200 acres of surrounding farmland. The local farmers grow their corn or whatever crop that they're growing. Whatever they don't eat, they deliver to us, the leaves, the stalks, the twigs, to our factory. We then break that down and put it into a biogas plant. That biogas plant produces two forms of gases, methane and CO2. The methane is a form of renewable energy, so that runs all the electricity for the plant, all the heating, cooling, and the whole plant material. The CO2 goes into the water, and we have 72 lakes 72 ponds that we basically have water that the CO2 goes into, and then we change the pH level of the water and microalgae starts blooming. Now this grows really, really fast. I mean, it just blossoms and grows like mad. And then you harvest it on a daily basis, you blast, freeze it, dry it, and turn it into protein powder. So what's basically happened is you've gone from stuff that you normally throw away through the facility and you've got something you can eat. But at the very same time, you've got the ability to have a very accurate record of how much carbon you've taken out of the atmosphere. And you've taken carbon by growing crops. You've put it into the biogas, saved carbon by having renewable energy. You've produced microalgae that through photosynthesis puts oxygen back into the environment. But more importantly, algae absorbs 60 times, that's huge, 60 times more carbon out the atmosphere than any other plant source. And then you're producing obviously non-animal based protein, which also has a carbon footprint. So when you take your amount of carbon that you saved through Tezos and NFTing and blockchain, we can now basically take that carbon number and turn it into an algae coin. And that now becomes a digital asset that is very valuable, and that can be exchanged on crypto.com or any exchange that you want to. So it was a byproduct, but an exciting, important part of our business was the creation of algae coin.
Very interesting. And to that end, are you currently offering the sustainable impact token for sale to the public?
Last week, we launched our start of the campaign, and we've had a very interesting uptake already. You can go onto our website, which is sustainableimpacttoken.com, and you can read all about the project. There'll be a button on that project if you wish to invest or purchase a token. That'll take you to a regulated platform where we need to pass your KYC and AML. And then as long as you pass that, then you can go into a full data room that gives you all the information about the project. And should you still wish to invest, then you can buy a token. And then that token will provide you with a 10% yield. And you'll be part of our organization and our success for growing our projects around the world. And then you'll also be the recipient of an algae coin as we start producing those algae coins. So you'll get a 10% return. You'll be investing in an asset-based sort of infrastructure business that's making an impact and a difference. And you'll be getting a reasonable return. Plus, you'll be one of the first beneficiaries of an algae coin.
Okay. So the sustainable impact tokens is sort of a mechanism to finance the actual construction of these algae farming facilities, correct?
Correct. So in terms of putting it into economics, one facility costs around 15 million US dollars, and that money is spent on a 35-acre plot, and that builds out the 72 ponds, the biogas plant, about a megawatt of solar, and the factory and infrastructure. We produce 900,000 kilos or 900 tons of protein powder a year from one facility. And we sell that protein powder for around $14 a kilo. So the income generated from one of these projects is $10 to $12 million of income a year, and the operating overhead's about $3. So it's a very successful business in its own right. And as an impact investor, I've always felt that the best success stories and impacts are businesses which are sustainable and have legs and will grow through business point of view. And then following that, if you're able to do carbon capture, food security, and renewable energy at the same time, it'll attract investors who want to be part of that journey, who feel comfortable being in that environment and joining a successful story.
So my understanding is that the capital raised by the sustainable impact token is going to finance a flagship facility for your organization in Poland. Is that a facility do you have a facility that's already up and running, or is this going to be the first one?
So my partner Leszek and I invested around $6.5 million into the project in Poland. And the raise that we're doing now is going to complete that project and take it from around 60% completion to completion next year. And then that will be the first project that has gone to scale, to such a large scale to produce what we're doing. And then the idea is this can be export it anywhere in the world, and our market that we're looking at next really is the United States. And we're in discussions right now with an office, a family office that's looking at putting some of these facilities into Florida, because we can take the sugar cane and the leaves that normally you would burn and would be terrible for the environment. They can go into one of these algae plants, and we can start producing protein powder in the United States. So the raise is doing two things. One, it's completing the existing project, and then it's a catalyst to opening up the US market. And then obviously from there it can go internationally.
Very interesting. We have a audience question, which we always like to bring forward when we can. The question is, it's from Nicholas Ockham. Are you considering other sources of CO2 than biomass, such as CO2 removal companies? A CO2 removal coin would be really cool.
Well, we'd be interested to learn more. If you want to share some information afterwards directly, I'd be fascinated. I'll be the first one to say that we're learning on a daily basis, and anybody with good ideas or good suggestions, we'd love to look at it.
Okay. As far as the construction of the facility in Poland, which is going to operate as your flagship, what stage are you and your team currently at?
So as I said, we're around 65% completed, which means that we've bought the land, we've put up the security fences, we've built 52 out of the 72 ponds, we've three-quarter constructed the biogas plant and some of the buildings. And we've also done all the groundwork and pipe work and infrastructure underground. So we must probably have over 100 miles of pipes and pumps and patented technology that's already established in the ground. So it's really the completion of that is what the current fundraising is looking to complete.
That's amazing.
It's exciting, and it's taken a long time, and lots of very clever people in Poland who work extremely hard, who are dedicated and very skilled to get it where it is. And it's definitely one of the most pioneering and interesting and exciting projects I've ever been involved in. I see the benefit in so many ways. In fact, I was invited to have dinner in Italy about a month ago with Cindy McCain, Ambassador Cindy McCain, that's John McCain's wife. And she's been appointed by the US to the World Food Program. And at the dinner, we were discussing how do we solve food security. And when I explained to her how we producing algae out of crops and water and biogas, her eyes lit up and said, you know that one algae bar and 2 liters of water will keep a refugee alive? Of course it will. That's exactly what humans need. They need protein and water. And this is such a superfood and a high nutrient that these are pretty real problems that can be solved, and it's not imaginary anymore. We have the ability to actually make a massive impact and get involved in those kind of projects.
So, I mean, it sounds like you have already been selling the protein powder that results from this process. Is that right?
So we've got in the laboratory what we will be producing, but to go to mass, we need to finish the whole facility. And then at that point, we have letters of intent and we have buyers who are interested in buying the protein. And at this stage, excuse me, the protein powder will be ingredients in other people's products. But it's a little bit like an oil refinery. Once you bring your oil out of the ground, you can either just sell it as crude oil, or you can actually set up a refinery and then start making your own products. And those in the United States will be very aware of Athletic Green 1, AG1. It's a very, very successful protein supplement, and our algae would be a perfect ingredient into a product like that. So in time, we see us actually producing our own products as well.
Amazing. This is all great stuff so far. We do have a giveaway to do. I'm excited to learn more. But before we dive deeper here, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round while we do the giveaway?
Sure, let's go.
Fabulous. Just before we do that, I'll announce the keyword. Today's keyword is !biomass. Enter the keyword !biomass in the live stream chat, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winner, who we'll announce before the end of the stream. Okay, now, Peter, it's lightning round time. Remember, there's no wrong answers. It's just for fun so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
This one I already know, but it was the first question I wrote down. Algae or algae?
Depends where I'm at. When I'm in America, it's always algae. Here in the UK, it's algae.
That's fair. Save the Earth or move to a new planet?
Absolutely save the Earth, without a doubt.
I concur. Cats or dogs?
Love dogs.
Is this real life or are we in a simulation?
It's real, absolutely real.
True or false? Money buys happiness.
It does influence, but in my opinion, happiness is recognizing happy moments.
Good answer. Name one thing you absolutely want to do before you die.
Go to the moon.
Excellent answer. That is mine also, actually. The last place you traveled was?
To the United States.
Not quite as good as the moon, but in 5 words or less, how would your best friend describe you?
Adventurous, kind, and surprising.
And
That's
finally,
three.
that's good enough. Finally, what's your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
I'm an author. I write. I've actually published a book, and I wrote it for my kids. And I was very surprised when it did quite well on Amazon. So I'm writing. Basically, I'm writing about.
What's it called?
It's called Bigger Than Me, and it's on Amazon by Peter Henderson. And I've donated all the proceeds to a charity that looks after cameramen and camerawomen who injured or hurt or killed in the course of their job.
A cause that's close to your heart.
It is. So it's a story about growing up in white South African apartheid South Africa, moving to the UK, witnessing the world, and then reflecting and making a difference.
Very cool. Okay, so let's get back into it. From what I understand, you already spoke to this a little bit about the algae coin, but can you tell us? So it's not only by purchasing sustainable impact token, not only are you contributing capital to build this flagship facility out and get this project rolling, you also get rewards in the form of algae coin. Can you talk a little bit about how those rewards are distributed and what algae coin actually is?
Sure. And this actually was something that didn't happen overnight. It's taken months of talking to specialists, of people who know a lot more than I do about the whole ecosystem. And the question that everybody was trying to, or the problem everybody was trying to solve, was how do we close the loop? How do we actually have a complete circle of opportunity that reflects a digital asset that's real, that's verifiable, and has an impact at the same time? So how do you actually do that? Is it a utility? Is it a security? What do you do with it at the end? And there are so many different thoughts on what it is. But when I was sitting at Crypto Bahamas with some people from Google and some other extremely bright people who are on our advisory board, we actually figured it out. We said, actually, what we're doing is we're creating like a green Bitcoin. We're mining our own Bitcoin effectively in our own factory, because we have the ability to do an in-house audit trail of how many tons of carbon we're actually capturing and saving a year, and then we can digitize that and sell it as an algae coin. Now, we had thought, well, what's the value of one of these algae coins? How do you actually figure out what it's worth? And the easy answer is it's basically worth at least what a carbon credit is worth today. And that's anything from $50 to $70 to $80 a carbon credit. But in reality, because it's an in-house green algae coin produced on algae with food security and carbon capture and green energy, it'll be worth what somebody's prepared to pay for it, effectively. So, it's not a wild dream to consider that this could be like a green Bitcoin effectively and have a very valuable ticket attached to it. So we haven't put a value on it, but we've said to any of our investors, if you are a fractional owner of one of these facilities by buying in with sustainable impact tokens, you'll be a fractional owner of the algae coins that we produce, because we want to share the benefit to our investors as well. So we see the algae coin being audited and created and made available, and that will be then distributed via a smart contract and ledger straight back to the investor, and they will then be the owner of that algae coin, and they'll have a choice on what to do with it. They can trade it, they can hold it, they can burn it, they can donate it, and I was even hoping that we might be able to create a facility or service where you can donate it to the World Food Program, for example. So one algae coin could feed an African village, possibly. So it'll make its own marketplace, but it's a very genuine crypto asset that is, as everybody knows, can be traded and exchanged on exchanges around the world.
That's very, very interesting. My mind went straight to, can I someday use an algae coin to pay the carbon tax when I'm filling up my gas tank?
Well, there's no reason why you can't, because it's going to be completely connected to carbon usage and impact. And if you, say, for example, you're a data center and you're burning lots of energy and you want to offset that, you could quite easily build one of these algae farms in your backyard next to the data center. You could access our green energy. We could host all the algae coin in your data center, and then you would basically get that credit. And as you know, some of the biggest buyers of carbon credits are people like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and those kind of companies. So all of those businesses could easily, through their ESG initiatives, be investing in facilities like ours and offsetting their carbon footprint and making a big impact at the same time.
Wow. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but in looking for a blockchain to work with in building out the sustainable impact token and algae coin, your team at some point landed on Tezos. I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit on how that decision was made and what the reasons were behind it.
I think it was made from a position of lack of knowledge and naivety to start with. And it was Googling, really, to start with, what is a blockchain, basically, and then figuring out what is a bead, how does it work, what's a smart contract, and then looking at this thing that I didn't understand at all, which was gas fees. And then, I minted an NFT and I put it on OpenSeas, and I paid more for the gas fees than anything else. So I started looking at, on-chain, off-chain, all that kind of stuff. And through my help with my business development manager, Chelsea Mowbray, the two of us sort of dug deep and said, okay, who are we going to come up with? And I'll be honest, the two contenders were Hedera, Hashgraph, and Tezos. And it was a very close call between the two. We really loved both organizations. Both were extremely helpful, very engaging. Hedera have a very interesting carbon credit initiative that we're still interested in at the moment. But Tezos helped us a lot in holding our hand through the creation of our company. So they actually reached out further in terms of service to real client support, and got an enormous amount of help from Ludovic van Zetten, who, honestly, he guided us through the whole process. And without him, I don't think we would have gone to Tezos. And then we met the team in London and started working with them. And we even created a DAO using Tezos and getting involved in the blockchain from that side. So it served its purpose extremely well. And we're very pleased to have their support and involvement. And I think we can grow together. We can build something pretty amazing. And I think this is the first time that a Tezos-enabled blockchain contract connected to a regulated entity who we're using in the UK called Globacap. Miles Harrison and Alex, they have a trading platform which basically is regulated, so you can buy and sell and trade shares on their platform. But instead of it being the old-fashioned, let me email you an NDA, sign it, send it back, get a sale purchase agreement, all the paperwork, you now do it all online, and it's all automated using Tezos with smart contracts. So it's really taken the mystery out of buying a share and having the feeling of comfort that it's all been done 100% legally and within the law, as well as within a structure that is completely visible because it's on blockchain. Okay. It's an amazing, and I see it in the future. I see this as being the only way things will be done in the financial world. And what will happen in time, and I guess in a year's time we might be talking, is, Pete, what has everybody done with the sustainable impact tokens? Well, now they're actually able to trade them in a secondary market, because this has become the norm. We've built 4 or 5 of these. There are a bunch of tokens, there's some liquidity, and people are now starting to exit and do other stuff. So it creates it's a catalyst of opportunity for the growth of an impact token that's going to be real, meaningful, and genuine.
Amazing. So you mentioned making that decision to with the help of Ludwig, making the decision to work with Tezos, and then presumably since then you've started to build things and you've started to dip your toes in the Tezos waters a bit.
Yeah.
What's the experience been like dealing with the people in this community and in this ecosystem?
So it's been extremely easy. We, as you would expect, when you get hold of a developer who's doing Web3 developments and they're used to working on perhaps different blockchains and different types of formula, and you say we're using Tezos, they're not really as familiar with Tezos as they might have been with what their other projects were. But the minute you put them in touch with the support team and they get all the tools and the connections into the network, they find it really simple and easy to build on and work with. So I think it'll be an ongoing, growing relationship. But there's been absolutely nothing negative. And in fact, I think we're quite good at pioneering and showing people that this is a platform to take seriously and consider as a green, solid platform to build impact investments on.
Okay. And speaking of a continuing bigger relationship, you mentioned a couple of things as we've gone here about building a facility in Poland and starting to produce algae and starting to produce the protein powder that comes from that and all that. That's sort of a first step in a much larger vision. I'm wondering, how much can you tell us about your larger vision for this project and where all of this is headed?
I think for me, it's taking the mystery out of what we're doing and making it available to others to join and say, I get it, I see it, it's not complicated. The ingredients is land, water, crops, patented technology, good construction, and a person who's going to buy the product and eat it and sell it and use it. And those are the ingredients of the successful business. And then the next thing is the location. Well, you need obviously flat land, you need a bit of sunshine, you need a bit of water, and you need crops around you, and you need a marketplace. So the obvious place is the United States. It's the biggest market in the world, and it's one of the most attractive to us. So we see us partnering with different people right across the United States to build a number of these facilities. But we've had interest from the United Arab Emirates, we've had interest from Brazil, we've had interest even from the Caribbean. And I've said, well, where are you going to get the crops? They said, well, we'll import the biomass from Florida. It's not a very long way away. And we'll build it in Bahamas and we'll sell the product back to the United States. It's got a lot of export credit opportunity. The financing of it has got a number of different ways you can do it, through construction finance to even forward selling the carbon credits. We've had people come to us and say, if we can buy your carbon credits in advance, we can lend you money against those sales in the future to actually construct your facility. Wow. So with a bit of experience and background and the right people, we see this business model, doing 2 things. One, having an impact, because that's the main reason why we do this. And secondly, rolling out in a significant way that it does have a massive impact.
Okay. Just my personal curiosity, have you eaten food made from algae yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go and have a look at anything that's relatively healthy on the back, you might see that it's got chlorella, for example, as one of the ingredients. So you most probably don't even know that you're eating some of these superfoods. But it's a fantastically high in protein and other nutrients. And I mean, for example, fish are fed algae because it gives them all the nutrients that they need to grow. So it's no different for us as humans. If you are able to consume it in a form that's delicious or even not delicious, it's really good for you.
Okay. And you've had both delicious
Oh
and
yeah.
not delicious?
So the one that's really green and slightly bitter and tastes a bit awful, and you put a spoon in and you swallow it down, think, oh, that was interesting, and an hour later you feel energized and energetic, and you think, oh, that's not that bad. By the end of the month, you actually can't wait to have it because you think, wow, I need it. So it can only be good for you. You know, there's nothing negative about it, and it's if you're not, and I'm sorry for all the cattle farmers in the world, but if we're not growing loads and loads of cattle for protein and messing up the atmosphere from cows, anything that's a non-animal based protein is helpful. And I'm not a vegetarian. I love my meat, but it is good for the planet.
Mm,
And we need to, as we grow. I mean, the world's population is growing so quickly, and we don't have enough space. We don't have enough food source. We don't have enough water for us to cope with in 50 years' time, the billions and billions more people that are going to be on the planet. We need to
yeah.
be creative and find ways to do that.
Absolutely. As I said right off the top, I mean, the things you're talking about here, these are existential problems for us, right?
Yeah.
I think this is just such a cool project. I'm so fascinated by it. I hope we can keep a dialogue going. I would really love to learn more about this. For those listening who want to learn more, I know you mentioned the website a bit earlier, but where can people go if they want to keep tabs on your progress and learn more about what you're doing?
So I think the first thing is just to have a look at sustainableimpacttokens.com. That'll give you access to our white paper. It'll give you access to videos. We have just started a blog. We're doing stuff on social media, so you can follow us on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. There are ways to follow our progress there. But we also like engaging with others. You know, one of my philosophies in life is to surround yourself with people more intelligent than yourself. So it's really helpful to have guidance and support and contributions from people who've been doing this longer than we've been doing it, or perhaps in a slightly different way, for us to collectively look at how we can work together. And we are looking for partners really to do this with.
Okay. We're just coming to the end here. Before we close off, I'd like to announce the winner of today's Tezos branded Nano Ledger giveaway. Today's winner is Regular Guy HQ. Congratulations! To claim your prize, just email us at social@tezoscommons.org. We'll request a screenshot for verification that you're the account owner. We'll get your shiny new ledger over to you as quick as we can. For those who missed out today, we remind you there are awesome giveaways to be found here on TezTalks live stream frequently. Keep tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezos.org/TezTalks, and we'd love to hear from you. Peter, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks building out amazing projects like Sustainable Impact Token on Tezos and keeping Tezos at the forefront of the blockchain revolution. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or talk about before we sign off here?
I just think that everybody can make a personal difference. Don't be afraid to contribute, no matter how small. If you're involved, you're involved. So learn, join us, make an impact, and recognize happy moments. Because if you spend your day making a difference, you're going to be a happy person. And I want to thank you for your support. We're
Amen
excited
to
by
that.
where we're going.
Awesome. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the Tez Talks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Our awesome guest has been Peter Henderson, Director of the Sustainable Impact Trading Ecosystem Limited. I'd like to remind all our listeners and viewers that the Tezos event of the year, TezDev, is coming up in just a couple more weeks here in Paris. We hope you can make it out to hear about how creators, developers, and innovators are building the Tezos ecosystem in 2022 and beyond. It will be a great time indeed. Go to tezos.com/tez-dev to learn more. Now let's go save the planet.